boss in this gym.
Fuck you.
Hey, what's up, man? Video Gamer here. We got another Barony class guide. I've covered the Brewer, Shaman, Joker, Mechanist, and Accursed classes, and now I'm doing the strangest of them all, the Punisher. I put this one off for a long time now, and it's for a very good reason. See, way back around the time I made the Brewer guide, I was far less experienced in the delicate art of playing Barony, and so when I saw the Punisher class and tried it out for the first time, well, it confounded and puzzled me greatly, so I just kind of never played it. But when I started this series of class guides, I knew eventually I would have to face my inner demons and learn this class. Strap in, lads, because this one is fucking nuts. As usual, this class is only available if you have the Legends and Pariahs DLC pack, so ensure you give Turning Wheel your hard-earned shekels. As with the other classes I've reviewed, the Punisher is primarily built to work with its signature race, though this is not required. Its signature race is the devilishly handsome and devilishly dressed Incubus. Being one of the two playable demonic races in the game, the Incubus has some unique aspects to go over. For one thing, how cursed and blessed items work is effectively flipped. Blessed weapons will still give their bonuses, but once equipped cannot be removed unless they break or are cursed. Cursed weapons, on the other hand, give bonuses but can be removed. Normal items are still just normal. You can also recruit other incubi, but you can also recruit succubi, giving the potential for a small army to form from her charming enemies. But this will realistically never happen, given the relative stupidity of Barony's NPCs. The last unique mechanic the Incubus has is the power of sadomasochism. If you equip an Amulet of Strangulation, not only will you be able to remove it, but for every tick of damage you take, you will also regenerate mana. This gives the normally useless Strangulation amulets a very critical use, as sometimes you really need that extra mana. It should also be mentioned that Incubi start with the Arcane Mark and Teleport spells. Arcane Mark will remove any resistances the target may have, and also marks them on the map. Teleport will teleport you to a random location, acting as a quick but somewhat unreliable getaway strategy. Now that you know what the Incubus starts with, what does the class in question start with? Well, some really wacky shit. For one, you have an Executioner's Hood, which will give you a burst of extra mana regen when you make an enemy bleed. Very nice. You also start with a Ring of Conflict to incite gang wars between members of the same faction, and a Crystal Axe to join in said gang warfare. You also have two very unique spells. One of them is Teleport Other. This spell will teleport whatever enemy you pointed at to a random location on the map. I like to think of it as a safer alternative to the standard teleport spell. The second spell you start with is Inner Demon. It costs 25 MP as well as 10% of your current HP to cast, and will exorcise an Inner Demon from the target. They will then be completely distracted and only attack it, dealing damage to themselves whenever they hit it. The demon also scales to your power, though I'm not really sure how, but generally, just think of this spell as the phrase, the bigger they are, the harder they fall, in a literal sense. Do be careful as to when you use it though, as it will only last for 4 hits before disappearing, and once you've used Inner Demon on a target, you can't use it again. Save it as an absolute last resort to try and either get away from a strong enemy, or use it as a tool to distract them and get some free back shots in. As for skill levels, they're all over the place. 20 in magic and 40 in casting, and then 25 in range and 25 in axes. The skill distribution is all over the place for this class, but it's strangely not as bad as you'd think. Now, there is one more tool in the Punisher's kit that I haven't mentioned yet. This is because I think it needs its own category because of just how complex it is. The weapon in question is the Whip. The Whip is the most unique and gimmicky part of the Punisher's kit. Firstly, it's an artifact weapon, meaning it will never break, so even if your Crystal Axe breaks and you don't have a replacement, you can always fall back on it. The Whip is a melee weapon that does ranged damage, initially equivalent to a slingshot, but its damage will also scale by strength and dexterity, 50% for each. Now, the main gimmick of the Whip is its ability to disarm an enemy, though you gotta do some work for it to happen. If an opponent is drunk or confused, there's a 33% chance that the Whip will disarm them. If they are immobile or disoriented, it is instead a 100% chance to disarm. It should also be noted that whenever you disarm an opponent, they will also take bleeding damage. The key to really utilizing the Whip as more than just shitty range damage is to pair it with those other status effects. Confusion and Drunk are fine and are pretty easy to get, but there's one spell that guarantees the Whip's usefulness, that being the Sleep spell. No other class benefits from the Sleep spell as much as the Punisher. It has an extremely low mana cost and puts the enemy to sleep, so when you hit them with your Whip, it will always disarm them, making them less of a threat, and it will also always cause them to bleed. And when that is paired with your Executioner's Hood, you get an endless cycle of making fun of your opponent for their unfortunate case of narcolepsy.
Fuck you.
Now you know the items, spells, and stats the Punisher starts with, so how do we put our theory into practice? Well, the gist of it all is to be as obnoxious as possible. There's a troll coming your way? Cast Teleport Other on him and send his ass halfway across the map. Or, whip him a shit ton, cast Arcane Mark, run away, and cast Teleport, then finish him off with a stealth crit from your axe. There's numerous playstyles you can use when playing the Punisher, with some being a bit better than others. If you take the time to grind blocking, you can basically just be a barbarian with decent magic ability. You could also forgo melee entirely and do a purely ranged and magic playthrough. It's all viable. Shit, if you wanted to, you could honestly do all three, though I personally wouldn't recommend it, just because then you won't be too good at any one thing, just okay at a couple things, which, in Barony, is typically not a very good idea. Some pointers I would give would be to always level your stealth as much as you can, as its benefits are massive and help a lot when you commit the daily Hamlet Massacre. And always stay as light as you can. You might have some pretty powerful spells and decent melee abilities, but your constitution growth is absolute garbage, so until you either get really good armor or are late into the game, keep it light.
Preferably naked.
And another thing, don't get too cocky. Yes, you can teleport behind an enemy and distract them with their own trauma, but just don't get too big for your britches, as they say. Well, there you have it, the Punisher class. It is gimmicky, strange, and all around a very different way to play Barony. Yes, there are other classes that do the Punisher's job a bit better, but just remember to always have fun when you're bullying other people. Take pride that you're the best at doing it. That's it for this video. I've got to go. See, I brought my family back from the dead, but they didn't retain their memories, and have effectively become ghouls, similar to the ones in Barony. I need to plan a way to return them to their final resting places, so yeah, bye.